Today I'm going to talk to you about 5 depreciated estate cars from 100k down to 5k. Let's get straight into it. Let's kick off with our 100k car, the Ferrari FF. It's always a pleasure to get a good value for money Ferrari into one of these lists, given front engine Ferraris have typically been well known for their expensive upfront prices and heavy depreciation, despite often being absolutely unreal cars. FF actually stands for Ferrari 4, not referring to the number of seats, but actually to the number of driven wheels, and it's not just an estate, but a shooting brake, a 3-door, great-looking variant of an estate. It was designed by Pininfarina and Flavio Manzoni, with some design cues taken from the classic 250 GT short wheelbase bread van, but it has some other modern and pretty intelligent tech on it for its age, including a rogue all-wheel drive system that utilises 2 gearboxes, one for the rear wheels and one for the front, with the rear one being a 7-speed and the front being a 2-speed, taking 20% of the power and maintaining a typical Ferrari rear-wheel drive feel while being Ferrari's first all-wheel drive 4-seater. These come with a ludicrous engine, a 6.3-litre V12 block, with 650 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.6 seconds, which is pretty mental for a car you can ferry the family around in. And it's actually quite practical too, taking in around 450 litres of luggage, so it'd be ideal for a grand tour and not too bad on the day-to-day, despite the fact that the car can handle a top speed of 208 miles per hour, making it the world's fastest 4-seater car on release. They'll run you around £75,000 at the bottom end, and 100k will get you a 2012 example that's done around 30,000 miles. The main problems I could find on forums and buyer's guides were around the power transfer unit, which controls the all-wheel drive system and can be an expensive replacement, electrical issues with the driving mode in particular, typically caused by a bad battery, sticky buttons in warmer climates, oil pan leaks, and some slightly rarer gearbox related issues. Plus, it's a Ferrari, you will be paying Ferrari maintenance fees. As we cut that budget in half to 50k, we don't really get any slower or less pretty with the Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo Turbo, an absolute monster of an estate that's more practical and modern and arguably better value for money than the FF. I recently had the chance to drive the Panamera, and it's a mesmerizingly comfortable place to be. You can genuinely tell it's built on the same platform as the Continental GT, and given the cheaper price, particularly second hand, they start to make a lot of sense once you get into them. You're still getting a premium Porsche interior and some serious looks on the exterior in this rarer Sport Turismo spec, which basically means it changes the car from a liftback design into a proper estate, though some would argue the liftback is still effectively an estate, so you could save some cash by going for one of them instead. Regardless, these are crazy fast, managing a 738 at the Nürburgring, which is effectively supercar pace with GT comfort, matching cars like the Lexus LFA, Ferrari 458, and even the supercar killing Nissan GTR. That's because the turbo comes with a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 engine to be exact, putting out 542 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.7 seconds, so literally just a tenth slower than the Ferrari. Going back to my experience driving one, I can't imagine throwing it around a track. I would much rather cruise around in one for a nice long grand tour. If you want to be seen, get the FF, and if you want to go a little more under the radar, then get the Sport Turismo. These do start at around a £50,000 limit. For that kind of money, we're getting a 2018 example that's done around 50,000 miles. There are a few threads on forums talking about looking for V8s from after 2020, as some were known to have the bolts holding the timing chain adjuster bolts fail, leading to a rough running engine and potentially some serious damage. But in reality, the main issues I could find owners talking about were the 8-speed PDK massively under delivering in the Panamera versus other applications, and a lot of people seemingly upset that the V8 Porsche could cost so much money on maintenance. Now we're cutting the budget in half again to £25,000 to talk about a fan favourite, the C6 Audi RS6 Avant, hosting arguably the most famous badge in the world of fast estates, and a car that actually has more power than the Panamera we just spoke about, despite being quite a bit older. This car will one day have unicorn status among the fast estate world, with its V10 engine that shares some similarities with an equivalent Lamborghini block, and also has motorsport inspired features like the dry sump setup, which typically allows for a lower centre of gravity and sustained high G cornering, as if you need that in a family wagon. If you wanted to go even further, you could get an RS6 Plus, of which just 500 were made, equipped with carbon ceramic brakes, adaptive dampers, and a top speed of 188 miles per hour. Pretty insane. The design of this car harks back to the original Audi Quattro, with the flared wheel arches front and rear, which enabled wider track for better handling. It also got larger air intakes on the front, which led directly into 2 side-mounted intercoolers to support that massive engine and its turbos. It might well well be my favourite engine in an RS6, a 5-litre twin turbocharged V10 block that makes 571 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.4 seconds, so again not far off the previous two cars, but significantly cheaper. I've not driven this RS6, but I've driven the equivalent RS4 as well as the following generation RS6, and both of those cars were unbelievably fast and fun. The RS4 was definitely the more fun of the two despite being less powerful because it was that bit more manual, and the RS6 was so fast it was almost scary. So when you put the two of those factors together you get this RS6, hence it's such a popular car at this point. These start at around £17,000 and £25,000 is enough for a 2008 example that's done around 40,000 miles. Some more common issues with the C6 include the oil pump seal failing, which can cause leaks into the under tray, typically requiring an engine out fix. Coolant pipes can also corrode, and the gearbox has been known to overheat and fail with hard driving. The V10 engine itself though is generally considered to be pretty reliable. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are, then do hit like and subscribe. 72% of you watching right now are not subscribed. I really appreciate it if you did. And let me know in the comments down below, what is the most iconic estate car ever? We're on to our only diesel car on this list now for our 10k price limit, the F31 BMW 335d Touring, which massively upgraded the performance of this badge to a point that owners probably didn't need to remap them like they did with the E91 to unlock major pace. Given we still hadn't reached the M3 Touring yet by this point, the 335d is probably the next best thing, hence the car was often used for unmarked and marked police cars, making the most of that crazy performance and more sedate looks. They don't have to look sedate though, you can still find ones that were spec'd with all the M performance trimmings, which is basically a bunch of carbon fibre fiddly bits that get the car looking that bit more aggressive, ideal for a car person who now has to think a bit more practically. And they really can be practical too. Not only are they massive with up to 1,500 litres of storage space, you can get them with a touch-free kick boot with the Comfort Access spec, making life a bit easier. I also think the interiors have really stood the test of time on them, as they don't look a million miles away from more recent BMWs. It might be the only diesel on the list, but it's still rapid thanks to that 3-litre twin turbocharged inline-6 engine that makes 308 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which is 1.4 seconds quicker than the E91 335d, helped of course by it making 630 Nm of torque and being all-wheel drive. These are listed anywhere from around £5,000, and double that would get you a 2014 example with high mileage. As a diesel, one of the main problems with these comes with the diesel particulate filter, clogged EGR valves and coolers, and carbon buildup on the intake system. Pretty standard for older diesels at this point. There are also sadly some potential problems with timing chain and main bearing failures in the worst cases, though these are less common. Our final budget cut now, but still to a pretty rapid estate for the money, our 5k car is the Subaru Impreza WRX, which seems to be listed as a hatchback, but I refuse to accept that it isn't an estate. I mean, I've always thought of this car as an ideal, cheap, practical and fun choice for a summer grand tour through Europe. Of course, the Impreza takes its roots from rallying, and the saloons are generally more expensive because of the old win on Sunday, sell on Monday mindset. They're just that bit more iconic, but the estate shouldn't be overlooked. And 100 special edition GB270s were also built with a ProDrive performance pack, effectively turning the estate into a WRX STI. You'll likely be getting a Hawkeye within our price range, which means the more angular headlights from the final facelift, but the one I'd say is the prettiest is the previous facelift Blob Eye. Unfortunately, with the Hawkeye comes the less reliable 2.5-litre turbocharged Boxer 4 engine if you're buying one of these that makes 221 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 5.9 seconds, though it is slightly less potent than the less reliable WRX STI Imprezas. I do think that long term these will also gain a bit of classic status, maybe not as much as the saloons, but these estates do have their own charm and sound just as good as their less practical stablemates. You need to spend around £4,000 to get into one of these, and 5k will now be a 2006 example that's done around 80,000 miles. As discussed, the engine isn't well known for reliability, and as I spoke about in my last video on hot hatchbacks, conversations on piston ringland failure, rod bearing failure, head stud failure and oil leaks plague owners forums and buyers guides alike. That's why at the time of making this video there is literally an engine failed 2.5-litre WRX for sale on AutoTrader for half the price of anything else as spares and repairs, and it will be why the older 2-litre examples, which are more reliable, are actually pricier. So that was 5 estates for every price range. I hope you enjoyed. Do hit like and subscribe if you did. Thanks to the patrons, thanks to you guys as well for watching, and click on screen to see a video of me driving a ludicrously fast estate.